Good morning and happy Tuesday to you. Chef Kevin Belton here. Now this morning, we're gonna make a savory vegetable rose tart. You know, this is fresh fruit and vegetable month. And you know, summertime, it's warm. I like things nice and light. And this is gonna be something that I hope you make. And this will be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dish that I hope I can pull off. Now, I'm gonna make this using puff pastry. If you want to use a pre-baked pie shell, if you want to make your own crust, that's fine. But I'm using puff pastry for this. Now, normally this is done like a tart. You know, in a tart pan is the pan where you see the little ripples around the sides. They're only about 1 inch high, but I don't have a tart pan. So I always believe in making do with what you have. So this is a spring farm pan that's normally used for cheesecakes. Basically what I did, I tore a piece of parchment paper, opened it up, put the parchment paper down, closed it up, and then took a pair of scissors and just trimmed the sides, okay? But normally this would be in a tart pan where it's only about 1 inch high and the bottom lifts out. But here, I'm gonna go ahead and get this in. Now, a lot of pans you may have to butter, but because we're dealing with puff pastry, you really don't have to butter the inside of this because it's not going to stick. So we're just going to take our puff pastry and we're just going to work it down into the pan, stretch it over the sides, and you see we have some that'll overlap. If you want to trim off the corners because it's squared or rounded off, that's fine. You know what though? I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it like this. Now, with puff pastry, if you haven't used puff pastry before, there are a couple things that you can do. You can take a fork, and if you take a fork and poke holes in it, it won't allow the pastry to puff, all right? Basically, these are a lot of thin layers of dough stacked on top of each other. That's why it's called puff pastry, because it's rolled so thin and folded so many times, kind of like a croissant is made. But instead of poking holes with this, I'm gonna weight this down. Now, I took another piece of parchment paper, all right? Basically, I folded it, cut it in a semicircle, open it up, and I'm gonna place this right down onto our puff pastry. These are chickpeas. Now, any kind of bean, you know, if you do a lot of baking, a lot of folks have weighted items that they use to weight items down, but you could just use beans for this, a dry bean. Basically, instead of having to punch holes in our pastry, I want it to rise up some so where it's a little light, but at the same time, the way these beans are going to hold this down so it won't puff up too much on us. Now, what's great about this is the fact that with these beans, okay, we can reuse them. Once this comes out, I can let them cool off, put them right back in the bag, and stick them back in the cabinet and use them again to weight something down with. So I won't ever cook these beans. I'm just using these to weight stuff down when I'm doing baking, okay? Now I have the oven set at 350 degrees. I'm gonna pop this in the oven. I want it in for about 15 to 20 minutes, all right? Then I'm gonna let it cool because we're gonna go ahead and put our vegetable rose tart together. Oh, it's gonna be so good. So let's get this in. All right, so I'll see you when that comes out and show you how we'll continue this rose tart that's gonna be absolutely beautiful. We'll see in a little bit. Hi guys, you can see the puff pastry has baked. And this is why I weighted it down with the chickpeas, because I didn't want the middle to puff up. I wanted it to stay flat. So I've taken out the chickpeas, and if you notice, I put them in a Ziploc because they're gonna go right back now in the cabinet because of the fact that I'll use them again to weight another pie crust down. So those will go up for another time. Here, I want to make a filling that I'm going to put on the bottom, all right? So I'm starting off with ricotta cheese, and I have a couple of beaten eggs. So we're going to just get this worked together. You can see here I have a little fresh oregano. And you know, with the oregano, I didn't even chop it. I just took the leaves, tore it apart. I also have a little pinch of nutmeg right here, and we'll get a little bit of nutmeg in. Now, I'm not going to put in any salt into this. I can do it later on if we want to adjust with a little bit of salt, but I'm not going to now. So look, here's our oregano, a little bit of nutmeg, right on in. And I'm going to use a Parmesan cheese along with a little mozzarella cheese so we can get our cheeses in. See, because of that Parmesan, I really don't need any salt. And we can always, once I get the vegetables done, we can always put a little salt there. But let me show you what I'm going to do with this. So now I'm going to take this and just put this down right in the bottom and just kind of spread that out. Because this is going to hold our roses in place. All right, so there, just spread that out. It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go, that's good. Now, what I've done with the vegetables, okay? I'll give an example. Here, zucchini, yellow squash. Take your peeler, lay it down if you don't have a mandolin. Just pull it back and it'll cut it in strips. You could do this with a mandolin if you have one, but the potato peeler works fine, okay? So what I've done some of the vegetables, and what I have here, I have eggplant, I have the zucchini, the yellow squash, carrots. Now I didn't have any, but I love to use the different colored carrots because it gives such a vibrant color to this. So take the wide end of the vegetable, and I microwave these for just a minute so that they're pliable. Roll it up. Just roll it up real tight as you can. And then we'll take another one and we do the same thing, just right around the sides. And you know, this is what's nice with this. This is something that the kids can do. You can get the kids involved in. And it might take 2 or 3, just depending on how many you have or how big you want them. Some could be big, some could be small. But now you'll see why we had our cheese filling. So now we take it and just stick that right in the middle like that, all right? And that's gonna hold it right in place. So we can do the same thing with the carrot. We can take the carrot and just roll it real tight. Now, depending on the size of your carrots, these would be like a little baby rose because the carrots aren't too big. So once I get all of these rolled, and in here, I'm gonna go ahead, season it. I might do a little bit of salt and pepper on the top of it. I'm gonna brush it with olive oil, but I'll get the flowers made and we'll show you what we're gonna do before we get it in the oven. We'll see in a little bit. Guys, as you see, we've got all the flowers rolled up. Look at the vegetables, look how pretty that is, all right? Now, I told you I wasn't sure how I was gonna season this, so what I decided to do, I have a little olive oil here in a pastry brush, and I want to brush the tops of the vegetables with a little olive oil, okay? This will help them to brown off. This will keep them from drying out. I'm also going to brush the top of that puff pastry as well, okay? Now, I've turned up the oven. You know, I pre-baked the shell and the puff pastry 350 degrees, but now I've turned it up to 375 degrees because I want it a little bit higher for our vegetables to cook. So now that we have that little olive oil all over, here I have a mixture of salt and a little garlic powder. Let's just give it a nice couple of pinches. I don't know, I just think that's gonna wake it up. A little fresh cracked black pepper. There we are. Now, I know I'm doing this in a springform pan, but a tart pan, it'll sit a little lower and you'll be able to see it. But I tell you what, with the springform pan, once it gets done and comes off, oh, it'll look absolutely beautiful. So this is gonna be in the oven for at least 50 minutes. It's gonna get nice and brown, the vegetables will cook, and it's gonna get so tasty. And I tell you what, depending on your ratio, if you like a sweet to savory ratio, the more carrots, the sweeter it's gonna be, all right? The more vegetables, the savorier it's gonna be. I tell you what, this smells absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to see it. Oh. look at this. This is so pretty. Now, normally, this would have been done in a Tart pan, but I only had a Spring Farm pan, and I'm going to try something. Let's see if we can take it off. Come on, open up. Wow, look at that. So there we have it. I mean, you know, instead of doing it in a Tart pan, you know, I always say do with what you have and do the things that you like. So here we have eggplant, we have carrots, and we have zucchini and yellow squash, and that puff pastry with that cheese all inside, baked so good. Oh, this is so good. I can't wait to taste this. I have to let it cool off a little bit, but I tell you what, I think this is going to be one of my new go-tos as a favorite, especially for a side. Can you see this next to a nice roasted chicken? Oh, so good. So for WWO, I'm Chef Kevin Belton. Have yourself a fantastic Tuesday and keep washing those hands and be safe.